On a chilly morning, as raindrops dripped on the windows of the café, the gloomy atmosphere outside only served to highlight the warmth inside. The small café in the neighborhood was buzzing as usual, with the clink of cups, murmurs of conversation, and the steady stream of people coming in to find warmth. The wooden tables, soft fabric-covered chairs, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, creating a familiar yet vibrant atmosphere. The café door swung open, and the outside air rushed in, bringing a cold breeze. A man, about 53 years old, wearing a tattered coat, soaked from the rain, stepped inside. Despite his gray hair, which was tousled by the rain, his eyes held the exhaustion of many years of life's struggles. He slowly walked up to the counter, glancing briefly at the menu before his gaze landed on the young barista behind the register. "One black coffee, please," he requested, his voice barely a whisper. As the barista began to process the order, the man fumbled in his pockets. His fingers trembled as he searched, but his wallet was nowhere to be found. His face grew pale, and he swallowed hard before speaking. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I must have left my wallet at home. If it's all right, could I just sit here for a while until the rain stops?" But immediately, the barista's loud refusal cut through the air, defeating the warmth of the café. "Look, buddy," he said, drawing the attention of nearby customers. "This isn't a shelter. We don't give out freebies to people who can't pay. If you don't have money, you can't stay." The man's face flushed with shame as he stepped back, his eyes darting to the floor. The patrons around him began whispering and mocking the man for coming into the café without money. The entire café seemed to bubble with contempt. But Emma, a 29-year-old waitress working there, couldn't stay silent. With her auburn hair tied back loosely and her usual warm gaze now filled with anger, she couldn't let the situation pass. Without thinking, she walked toward the counter, slammed her tray down decisively, and pulled a $5 bill from her pocket, placing it firmly on the counter. "I'll pay for his coffee," she stated firmly. Emma's words weren't out of pity, but because she deeply understood the feeling of being judged for not having enough. She recognized the humiliation the man was experiencing. It wasn't charity. It was compassion and a deep understanding of the times she had been looked down on just for lacking. The barista's smirk faded as he looked at her. "Emma, what are you doing?" he scoffed. "You don't have to pay for him. He can't just walk in here and expect handouts." Emma's gaze swept over the patrons around her. She didn't need to explain herself further. Her simple action spoke volumes. A derisive laugh erupted from the corner of the room. "How noble," one man sneered. "A waitress playing the hero. Maybe she's hoping for a tip later." Emma turned to face the room, her posture strong, her voice filled with conviction. "Kindness isn't a transaction," she declared. "It doesn't diminish us to show compassion. But belittling others reveals true smallness." The café fell silent, the mockery replaced with a strange introspection. Emma turned back to the man, offering him a gentle smile. "Please, have a seat," she invited. "I'll bring your coffee over shortly. Don't let the harsh words of others define your worth." The man looked into her eyes, his own filled with unshed tears. He nodded appreciatively and sat down by the window, where the rain continued to streak the glass. As Emma prepared his coffee, the atmosphere in the café subtly shifted. The patrons avoided her gaze, their earlier amusement now replaced with quiet contemplation. In that moment, Emma stood as a beacon of dignity and empathy, while the man, once deemed unworthy by those around him, found solace in the simple act of being seen and valued. The moment in the café echoed in Emma's mind as she finished clearing her shift. No one spoke to her directly, but the stares, whispers, and silence lingered in the air like smoke. The next morning, her manager, Brian, called her into his office. The small room smelled of burnt coffee and bleach. "Close the door," he said. Emma obeyed. Brian crossed his arms. "This is a business, Emma, not your charity project," he began, his voice dripping with annoyance. "You can't just decide who deserves help." Emma held his gaze, not letting herself be swayed. "I paid for it, Brian. "There's nothing wrong with helping someone in need," she calmly replied. Despite not having the support of her co-workers or manager, Emma felt an unwavering sense of conviction. She knew that sometimes, it was the small actions that made the biggest difference. She had decided that, no matter the criticism or disapproval, she would always stand firm in her values of kindness and fairness. The next day, with the same heavy atmosphere of silence and tension, Emma continued with her usual work. She moved from table to table, no longer seeking approval but focusing solely on her tasks. Then, the door opened again, bringing in a refreshing breeze. A man entered, not hurried like the previous day, but with a confident, composed air. Emma's eyes involuntarily went to him, not because of his expensive attire or noble appearance, but because of a unique presence in his eyes, a gaze she had seen in distant memories. He walked to the table by the window, the same seat where the distressed man had sat the day before. Before Emma could approach, he spoke. "I'm not here to order," he said. "I just have one question for you." His voice was deep, filled with patience. Emma looked at him, a bit surprised, but felt an odd connection between them. "Why did you help me yesterday?" he asked, without any judgment, but a genuine search for an answer. Emma pursed her lips, her heart tightening. "I couldn't just watch someone be treated like that," she replied, keeping her eyes on him. "And I understand the feeling of being invisible." He smiled softly. "I see you're not just an ordinary worker. You are the person I've been searching for." In that moment, Emma was confused, unsure of what he meant. He continued, "I am Charles Everlin, and I've seen you since yesterday. Your courage made me reflect on myself. I want to invite you to meet with me." Emma didn't speak, her mind overwhelmed with surprise. But strangely, she didn't feel tested or pressured, only respected by someone who had searched for true compassion in a world full of pretense. She decided that, no matter what, she wouldn't refuse this opportunity. A few days later, Emma stood in the lobby of a luxurious hotel, a place she never thought she would set foot in, not because she didn't feel deserving, but because there was always a gap she felt she couldn't cross. She stood there, feeling small in the grand space with its glittering chandeliers and people moving with quiet entitlement. With just one simple shirt, worn-out shoes, and a dress borrowed from her roommate, Emma felt like an outsider, but she didn't turn back. She walked up, looked at the reception desk, and gave the name that had now become unforgettable in her life, Emma Bennett. A receptionist glanced at her and said nothing, just gestured to guide her to a private area on the 21st floor. Inside the elevator, Emma's heart pounded, not because of the luxury, but because she was approaching something beyond words. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into a quiet, warm, and incredibly luxurious space. Deep brown leather chairs, soft lighting from chandeliers, and a table set with tea and fruits awaited. Then, Charles, stood there. No longer the man she met in the café that day, but a strong man, his confidence radiating from every step. His transformation wasn't about his appearance, but his attitude and perspective on the world. Charles smiled when he saw Emma enter, and there was no grandeur, no move that made her feel pressured. "Thank you for coming," he said warmly, without arrogance. "We can begin our conversation now, if you're ready." Emma sat down, eyes never leaving him. "I don't know where this conversation will lead," she gently replied, "but I know I will listen." The two of them sat down, not as a CEO and a simple girl, but as two people with separate stories, pains, and hopes yet to be shared. In the quiet space of the room, the unspoken connection between them became clearer than ever. Emma realized this meeting wasn't just the start of a conversation, it was the beginning of a journey that would change her life. After a long conversation, Emma sat quietly, listening to Charles share his life and the difficult decisions he had faced. There was no fanfare, no promises, just a discussion of his journey to find sincerity in a world full of wants and ambitions. Emma felt as though she had found someone who truly understood the value of simplicity and respect from the soul. What happened next, however, was something she could never have expected. As the conversation came to an end, Charles looked at her with a determined gaze. He wasn't in a hurry, didn't make any exaggerated gestures, just gently placed an envelope on the table between them. "Emma, I want you to take this money," Charles said, his voice serious and steady. "Not out of charity, but because I believe you deserve an opportunity to do what you want without worrying about money. This is a gift of recognition, not out of pity." Emma stared at the envelope, a sense of surprise growing within her. She didn't speak, but inside, an odd feeling rose. This wasn't just a simple gift, it was a big decision. An acknowledgement from a man who wasn't used to giving away money easily. "Take it, not for me, but for you," Charles continued. "I want you to have the freedom to make the choices you believe in. Not because of scarcity." Emma felt a shift in the air, as if this was a point of no return. She thanked Charles and took the money, not because of generosity, but because of the freedom it would bring. She didn't need flowery words. She understood the gift was not just money, but a chance to start over, to stop worrying about the burdens of life, and to rediscover the values she had forgotten. But one thing she couldn't forget: the price of freedom. In the days that followed, Emma thought a lot about that money. She spent hours weighing the decision, wrestling with herself. She didn't want to accept it, feeling unworthy, but then realized that mastering life wasn't always about rejecting the good things. What mattered was how she used it to grow, instead of falling into dependency. That day, as she prepared to leave work, Emma's eyes turned to the window of the old café. She had chosen to change. She no longer needed charity or money to prove her worth. Instead, she would walk her path, not waiting for someone else to save her. With that money, Emma decided to open her small store, not because she wanted to change the world, but because she wanted a space to express her freedom and creativity. Everything didn't come from lavish gifts, but from the choices she made. The cost of freedom was persistence, an ongoing effort to find her true self.